1990.
Here we are.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
When was the last time we saw each other?
I was trying to think about that. I think maybe it must have been before you moved to Johnstown, right?
So like 2011,
Like
2012?
I used to walk to your house. I remember Leanie was a baby in a stroller, and I was walking with Liz. So, but
Okay.
I mean, it could have been after that. That's just,
I probably
it's been a long time.
I think I have photo evidence of that. Okay. Are you excited for this?
I'm excited now. I was a little nervous now, and then I'm sick. Hold on, let's turn you up.
Welcome back to the ADHDan podcast, where we leave no stone unturned when it comes to religion, politics, and the questions that make us who we are. Today's guest is Lauren, 1990, Hatch. Pokhrel?
Pokhrel.
Pokhrel? Okay. I saw that on social media and I was like, I don't know how to pronounce that. So,
All good.
So we've known each other, I think, for around 25 years.
Uh-huh.
Back when we were just kids running around Pleasant Valley Assembly and Pure Adrenaline and all those different
Pure Adrenaline. Oh my
band
God.
spots. So just a backstory, I started calling you 90. I swear I coined that nickname.
You started it, yeah.
I think Chris McConnell tried to take claim to that one time. So
in my memory, it was totally you, and then it just took off from there.
yeah, because at the time, just some backstory, I heard that you were born in 1990, and I was like, oh my God, she is so young. And now it's like, it wasn't that, at the time it was a big difference, but.
There's a big age gap, yeah, when I was like 12 and 13, but not so much now.
Okay, so Lauren, before we take some deep dives here, I typically do rapid fire questions at the end, but I'm going to do them at the beginning.
Okay.
Kind of like an icebreaker.
Boy.
Are you ready for it?
Alrighty, I think so.
Question number 1. Moon landing, true or false?
True.
Okay. Question number 2. Yesterday or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Question number 3. Brand new or Taking Back Sunday?
Ooh, Dan, come on.
There's only one right answer here.
Just the music?
Yes.
Separate all the stuff. Just the music, brand new.
Okay, yes, okay. You can stay on. I was going to hang up, but...
Damn it.
Question number 4. Curiosity or certainty?
Curiosity.
Yeah. Question number 5. What is one belief you've changed your mind about?
God is real.
Okay, yeah.
We're starting with that.
No, I want to kind of put that on
Ease
pause
into it.
for a second, because I have questions about that, like where you stand and everything. But so I think we established the last time we saw was like around 2010. Pick up where we left off. I moved to Johnstown, went through like 3 different jobs, 4, 5, I don't even know. And I think you were abroad for a while. Tell me your story from 2010 on.
Okay, so from 2010 I would have been in my 2nd year of undergrad at Penn State Altoona. Graduated from there in 2012. 2013, I joined the Peace Corps and was in Costa Rica for 2 years teaching English. Long story short, right before I left there, I came to Ocean City one night to party and celebrate graduating college. Met my husband in a club. We did a long distance thing while I was in Costa Rica, and then we got married 2 weeks after I returned. So that takes us to 2015. He was living in Ocean City, Maryland at that time, so I moved here. did my master's in English and sort of started teaching college English through that. That's kind of what I've been doing the last 10 years. And then currently I'm still teaching college English and working on my doctorate. Hopefully we'll be finished up with that soon. Had 2 babies in the meantime, 2 wild, crazy boys, 2 years apart, full on boy energy.
How old are they now?
So they're 5 and 7. Well, my oldest is almost 8 in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. So we're like on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. We've been here like the last 11-ish years.
So you never lived out of the States? I mean, other than like...
I mean, I traveled a lot abroad, so that's probably what you're thinking of, but I never technically lived out of the States other than Costa Rica when I was in the Peace Corps.
Okay.
So, yeah, that makes sense, because we would have, I think we kind of lost touch, around then, so.
It's funny because I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, I had one guest set up, and they were like, oh, I'm going to be traveling. They actually live in the UK. They're coming to the States, but it's just all a mess. So I was like, oh, I really want to record. And I was just on Instagram one day and I saw one of your posts and I was like, hold up a minute, because this fits surprisingly well. Let's start off. Like I said, we both went to Pleasant Valley together, Pleasant Valley Assembly of God. Lots of great memories there. What was your experience like just with that whole community and everything that you learned?
Ooh, yeah, it was, so I was there, I started there when I was like, I think I was 3 months old when my mom started going there. So, I was in total there for like 20 years of my life. When I started going to the youth group stuff right before junior high, and like when I started meeting you and everybody, went to Great Commission, another connection.
Which did we go there at the same time?
You graduated before I.
Okay.
I think, didn't you graduate the year before? Wait.
02.
Yeah, so that probably, I think you were graduate the year before I started there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just when I was planning for and thinking about planning for this and talking to you, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of memories, you're in a lot of my core memories, like you and Liz from those times, but
I hope they're good.
Those ones are good.
Okay.
But yeah, so like, just for anyone listening, did the whole youth group, worship team, fine arts, competing, that is very common in Assemblies of God churches.
Which we were
in my memory,
the youth band together.
We were in the youth band together. Mm-hmm.
I think I actually have video of that.
Stop.
I'm going to pull a clip. I'm definitely throwing that in here.
Okay. Oh boy. Fun memories. Yeah. So I had a blast when I started the youth group. Like I was meeting so many people. We had a lot of fun. And then I was also thinking, I think it was you that got me into shows. I think my first show was like Punchline, that I'm pretty sure happened because of you somehow. When I was like 12,
Wow.
Possibly 13. And I just remember, like, especially those first couple of summers, like I just think like anytime we all sort of hung out, I always had a lot of fun, even though I was significantly younger than a lot of people. And that was really great. So socially, I think I had a really awesome experience. And then, one thing that was also cool is a lot of the same people in our youth group also did attend Great Commission schools. So, we were just kind of always around each other. There's always someone to hang out with, always something to do. And I have like really, really positive memories with all of that. The ideology, the spiritual stuff and talk and all of that, that is not, I don't have so many positive memories around that.
Well, can you put yourself back at that time and say like kind of what it meant to you then? Because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's like it did have an impact, but I feel there were,
So I think because Assemblies of God is the way that it is. So like, the fruits of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, church services were very long, very emotional, very high energy. I mean, it's very different experience than attending like some Lutheran service or something. And I loved that as a kid. I loved it. I was at church like probably 4 nights a week or something, if not more, doing the musicals, doing all of the things. And I felt, how I explain it now is I think I internalized what I was being told of like, there was this high emphasis of this very like intimate relationship with Jesus and God. It was very internal. It was very personal. It wasn't something like outside. And at the time, it was like on fire for God, right? Like that was the phrase, and that's what I was trying to mimic or to do. And I did. I believed all of it. I believed all of it. And then I think I remember a couple of years into youth group, when I was a little bit older, so maybe like 14, 15, starting to think, okay, like what does this really, like what, be on fire for God, what does that actually mean? Like I just started to see some holes. I started questioning, and that's sort of where I pinpoint, like where I started questioning the ideology and the belief system. But before that, I was pretty diehard. Music, missions trip, like again, worship team. I was up at the front singing, hands raised, praying.
I don't have any footage of that. I wish
God.
I did.
Ooh, no one needs to see that.
So 2 things that kind of struck me with that, because I feel that those are 2 things that I really connected with too. It's like specifically the AG churches, it's like they play off emotion. Like it's a very emotional high. So it's like it does keep you wanting more and keep you wanting to go back. I think that's one part of it, but then also something that you mentioned, to me, it feels like you said you internalize all of basically the beliefs and everything. I feel that I've met some great people in leadership with the AG churches, and I, like on a personal level, I'm like friends with them. But I think one of the issues that I see is they're kind of blinded to all of it too. So they don't, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they don't know any better than to basically indoctrinate the next generation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's very generous, and I think that's really generous. I think that's part of it. And I think, I think about my mom, taking me there. I think she was just trying to do, what she thought was what parents are supposed to do, right? And I think,
right.
People in authority positions were doing what they thought was good, a good thing, a great thing, or like exactly what we're supposed to be doing, right? Like spreading the word and teaching the next generations and all of that. I do, I guess just because I'm so far, I think I left when I was like, let's say 16 years ago, and I'm very, very like far from that in my, I just feel like it's been a long time since I've been in that world. And so I also feel like, I guess where I'm landing now and the things I teach my students about and stuff is a lot of like, but there's also a lot of harm and consequences that came out of like people just thinking they were doing a good thing.
Yes. Yeah. So here's a question for you. What, if you could name, I'm sure you could make a list, but what are a couple things that at the time were just very normal to you being in that culture, and now you look back and think, wow, what was that?
There's just so many things. So one thing that was hard about that particular sect of Christianity is like it always felt like we were always unsure, like, are we really close enough to God? Like, there was always this like moving target of like, we have to do more, we have to pray more, we have to read the Bible more, we have to be around our church people more. Like it was always this like more. There's never like a contentness or a satisfaction. And now I'm just like, what the hell were we all like? What, I don't know, what were we trying to do? I don't know what we're, and that's very like, especially as young, like I was I'm thinking about this even when I was 9 years old, and like that's a lot for a child to be thinking about. And then because that was my entire environment, like you said, I didn't know anything else. So that comes to mind. Some of the really, to me now, crazy stuff is like, there was this constant fear of like demonic influence, of this, like there's this spiritual battle going on where like in your thoughts, in your coffee, in your TV, in your books, there were demons just waiting to like attack you. And again, we're talking about like 12-year-olds having to engage with these kinds of ideas, right? So I think that is it. And then I think, we probably all have to go back to like the services themselves, of like, you're walking into a service. I mean, at one point people are not this, I don't think this was common every single week, but people running in circles around the sanctuary, waving flags, again, like speaking in tongues, or people interpreting it, like a very, very emotional 2 to 3 hour long service. And I still, even then, I think at the end of that service, I would just be completely exhausted. Like I would always go home and nap. Yeah. I mean, mostly also because I was probably like up partying Saturday the night before, which we can talk about that. But yeah, it was like all that stuff was just normal, of like, oh yeah, like the devil's trying to attack us and we need to keep, be on guard constantly to make sure that that's not happening.
Right. Do you think this is something that I think I've learned from my journey? I on the outside, the church acts like they're selling salvation, but I really feel that they're selling fear, and that's what keeps you coming back. Would you would agree with that?
100%. I think, when you boil it down, I think they think they're selling what God is telling them to sell. I think they're selling like this, this is the right way to live. This is the right way to be. If you want to end up in heaven, this is what you have to do. But what is the opposite of that? It's, or you go to hell. Right. Like there was no in between. Hell was a very real, talked about place again. And just, for perspective, we're talking like children entertaining these ideas of like, okay, there's a hell. I could go there. I think I'm saved. I said that prayer last week at the,
I'll say it again right now, just in case.
You better say it again, just to make sure. And it was fear. And, one thing I think about a lot now, and I would like to hear your perspective too, is like, there was a lot about like drug addicts, like I have so many memories of it. Feels like almost every sermon was about like saving the drug addict. Like, and I know, looking back now as an adult, I know there were a lot of people who attended that church in recovery, and I think if that helps them, that's amazing, or if that helps them sober or whatever. But again, it's just like, it was just so intense.
Right.
And I think, again, going back to the fear of like, I don't know how, I would love to have an open conversation with someone now just to pick their brain of like, I don't know how else you could frame that other than like trying to scare people out of hell.
Right.
I don't know how else you could see it.
That's actually my plan. I would like to talk with a number of people who have left the church, and then reach out to a number of people who are still in the church, leaders or just congregants, whatever, and just say, hey, I'm not trying to attack. I don't want to debate. I just want to ask you some questions. Like, do you feel this way? Or like, my fear is that no one will be honest. I think they won't be honest, or they are too caught up in it. I don't really know. didn't really pay attention a whole lot in sermons. I did in school when we had Bible class. I did in youth group, but Sunday sermons, nope. Dang. I don't remember what I was going to say.
The drug addict. So you don't recall
No.
a lot of those.
But I was going to make a point about that. And now I'm like, it's out there somewhere. It'll come back later. But I did want to go back to when I first reached out. You sent me basically an essay that you wrote, breaking down kind of why you left the church and your experience, and it's called Coming Out as
Exvangelical.
Yes. So we've already been talking about it, but can you kind of give me a breakdown with that and talk about the person who wrote that?
Yeah, so again, I was, deconstructed is like a word now. It wasn't a word when I was deconstructing, right? In 2010 or something. Basically, I think this deconstruction space is becoming a bit more popular in social media with documentaries, podcasts, things like that. So anyway, I'd read a book, Heretic, and I just felt very inspired to sort of reflect more deeply on my first 20 years of my life that was so deeply involved in evangelicalism. Again, because I went to a private Christian school, as well as very knee-deep in the Assemblies of God Church. And when I started kind of listing out, these are my memories, doing human videos to save people in Ukraine who were homeless, right? I mean, I have so much shame and horror thinking about that. Hell houses. We would do hell houses in downtown Altoona and have people walk through it. And I was playing Cassie Bernal, pretending to get shot at a school shooting. And the way we just normalize these things of that this is, again, and that was also a big thing also of are you ready? Are you willing to die for God? At all the time. That was a big conversation. I think at our church, I think that was all over, sort of the maybe more Pentecostal charismatic churches at that time because of the Columbine shooting. And but this idea of warfare and it's a battle and that was very, very much present in our everyday conversations and stuff. But anyway, so I wrote that just sort of reflecting on a lot of those memories that were coming back to me, and tracing sort of where I started to become more skeptical or curious of what were we really doing here. And I think it started around maybe 14, 15, where again I was starting to feel the sermons I was hearing or the Bible study groups I was in, I'm just what? It just started to feel a little bit jargony of what exactly are we saying here? I remember specifically pulling a pastor aside, oh my God, the audacity I had. Pulling a pastor aside, telling him, you need to use more actual Bible verses in your sermons because a lot of this is just your own idea. And he took that with stride. He was I don't know if he really did it, but he at least was very open to that conversation. But I think that just shows where I started deconstructing away. Really what it was for me, and when I went to college and I was taking, again, because I was in such a bubble until I, let's say 18 before I started college, and I was still in a bubble. I was still in Altoona in my hometown. Penn State Altoona is still a bubble, but it was a much bigger bubble. And for me, really what did it was taking my humanities courses. I was taking history and philosophy and literature. I'm well, no one ever taught me about that. And, reading firsthand accounts, historical accounts of things that had happened and that I just never knew about. One, because I think just across the board, U.S. education is not great in explaining those kinds of things, horrible histories that have happened. Two, because I had an even more sheltered, controlled education being in a private Christian school. So anyway, yeah, just the humanities and really like meeting different people and all of that really just blew my mind. And also why I felt compelled to write that, we want to go there, is this rise of far-right extremism, Christian nationalism that we can trace back to Trump. But, it was well in the waters before he came on board. And I had a lot of that in my upbringing. So it wasn't just the religious background, but it was, kind of what I really wanted to portray most in writing that essay was like, it was always part and parcel with this far-right politics. Not so much, I think, in Assemblies of God. Like, I think it was, I don't recall, like, there wasn't a lot of explicitly political conversations, but looking back now, and a lot of that was also my own family, very conservative and stuff, but I think it's a unique thing here in the U.S. of, like, this rise of evangelicalism. I'm sure it's all over, but, at least what I'm talking about. And it's one thing to have people with beliefs that I think are problematic, but they're just like living their own lives. It's another thing when they try to politicize and put those into policies that affect our country, our supposed, free country.
Right.
So a lot of what I wrote that was trying to like show those correlations too.
Mm-hmm. So do you think religion, Christianity specifically, is exploiting politics, or do you think politics is exploiting Christianity? Could you make an argument for both?
I think it's both. I think, I think it's both. I think what we've seen right now, or at least in the last 8 or so years, is both. It's the politicians, let's say on the right, seeing this trend, and it is a trend, it's well documented, like we are, Gen Z is a lot more religious and conservative than like us millennials were, right? Like it is kind of swinging in that direction. There's a lot of, I was just saying to my husband the other day, like every Netflix show we're watching, it's like they're talking about traditional gender roles. Like that would not have been a thing when I was like a teenager. I don't ever recall, but anyway, so I think it's both. I think it's politicians seeing where they could get more influence, and then I think it's there has, Tia Levings is a great person to talk about this, who's been speaking about this, of like there has been sort of decades-long movement in Christianity to be more political, to gain political power. So I think it's both.
Okay, so you're coming out as Exvangelical. I read that. I thought it was beautiful. I think I responded to you. There were so many things that I just sat back and I was like, yep, I can relate with that. That's a great way to put that. But I think one of the things that hit me the hardest was, I'm going to read a small excerpt. Do I have your permission for this?
You do. I might cringe through it, but you do have.
Okay. So this is talking about basically the services. With expert level tech and lighting, the music was a far cry from a dusty hymnal and organ that more traditional churches have. The keyboards, guitars, basses, and drums blared during the choruses. We sang, and you have song lyrics in there. And then you said it quieted down during all the right times to give us time to pause and reflect. It picked up at all the right times, letting us fully express our voices and bodies just how much we yearn to be in the arms of God. That is something that I have really been thinking about a lot recently. The fact that, and you kind of touched on this before too, it's like you were making these videos for homeless people. How does that help a homeless person? I look at some of these extravagant, not even mega churches, but just any church anymore. You walk in and the amount of production, it's like, how many houses could you build? How many mouths could you feed? Jesus never asked for like, hey, build this big place for me, sing praises to me, like, go do these things. So that part right there, I think, hit me the hardest. I connected with that. So thank you.
Thank you. I agree. I think that's probably one of the main reasons of why I loved it so much growing up. Like, I took pride. Like, I had friends that were like Catholic or went to like more traditional Christian churches, again with organs and hymnals and stuff, and they thought it was crazy when I brought them to our church, but I was like, I loved it, right? It was like a rock concert.
Right. It was a party every
and again, it was
week.
Yeah, and it was intense and it was emotional, and I loved singing on stage, and I think that really gave me, I think those services do give you like a full body experience that it's easy to, I think, have those kinds of experiences, very emotional, very deep, and then feel like, okay, this is it. Like, this is legit. But yeah, it's a major production. And especially, I'm just going to say it, at that church, there's a lot of requests for money, a lot,
Yeah.
put it mildly. And yeah, it's like, for what? Like some cool new lighting shells or whatever. Like, so I think, once I started deconstructing, that was a lot of, same as what you said of like, we could be doing, if we're raising money to fly to the other side of the freaking world. I don't believe in that at all, but if you're doing that, at least do something substantial, like at least give people some food, at least give them some medical treatment or whatever it is that they need, that they say they want, right? But that's probably a whole other topic. But yeah, and it was just like, okay, we're going there to do some miming for like for what? And like to pray for them in English, and like they don't speak the language, like they don't speak that, we don't speak their language, like just the colonialism, the imperialism, all of that. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, and it just felt so vapid. Like I have been in, and once so just going back to sort of my journey, I did kind of deconstruct. I think I kind of had a really bad taste in my mouth for like the charismatic Pentecostal. And then I did try to find some more like what I felt substantial kind of churches. I attended more traditional churches, or even like some Bible study groups that felt like, okay, this is a bit more like what I think Christianity is supposed to be. And that did feel more, I guess, closer to what I was trying to get at or something. I don't know, but this surface level-y stuff, I think that really, once I kind of was like, speaking to the production and all of that, I was just like, okay, what are we doing here? Like it really started to put a bad taste in my mouth. Although at the same time, I was also like a worship leader many times and up at the very, like doing that exact thing,
Right.
And a lot of us loved music, right? I loved singing. You played guitar, and it was an amazing opportunity to get those experiences. I mean, the musical opportunities to perform, I really missed that. That was something that really left a hole after I left the church of like, I didn't have, I was university choir, but it's not the same thing. And I really missed that. So, but also like, can we just stay like we're here performing and singing some songs and not make it like a whole other thing? Yeah,
just like a campfire or something.
We should have just been sitting around at the campfire.
Yeah. So, okay, so you've left, I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but what are some things that you miss, if anything? Because I'm sure, for me, I still have things that I miss, but...
I miss the sense of community. I miss, and I'll be honest, my dad passed away this past fall, and a lot of people from that church that I hadn't seen in 20 years, many of them came, and that was really very, very touching. And people that we're friends with them on Facebook, and I know they don't really agree with a lot of what I say, but they showed out. And if someone has a baby, there's a meal train going on. There was that sense of community that I think is so important. And I think that's why probably a lot of young people are turning to those kinds of spaces. I really miss that. I really miss performing and being on stage and singing and just kind of like ad-libbing, doing whatever. In youth group, we had a lot of fun. The camp and stuff, like we had a lot of fun. And yet I still kind of once in a while on a random Sunday, I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to like wake up and go to that church service.
So where would you say you are now? I guess that's a very big question, but like spiritually, do you hold any of the same beliefs?
I was worried about that question. So
you really thought I wasn't going to ask something like that?
I knew you. I was just worried about how to answer it. Of course, I knew you were going to ask. Just to give some context. So I studied abroad in 2010. Maybe this is what you're thinking of. For the first time, I went to London for a month. I took like some English courses. And before that, I was still on the worship team. I think I was half-heartedly in, but didn't know, because I was just in that environment. I didn't know how to get out of it.
Because it's all you know.
It's all I knew. And again, like, we're talking about like someone's like spiritual belief. Like this takes years to kind of land on. So, anyway, so I went abroad, and then that was a profound experience for me. And I never went back after that. I moved back home. I moved back to Altoona. Again, I was only abroad for like a month and a half. But I never went back to the church, and no one contacted me. No one the people that I would have thought like, hey, coming back to be on the worship team, did not reach out. Probably because they saw I was like partying, clubbing it up in London. That's totally fair, but I thought maybe a conversation would have been nice. But I think that spoke a lot to me. But anyway, so I kind of left. I got a little bit more into like the new age stuff. Like I was just seeking, right? Okay, if I kind of slowly was like, okay, I believe in Jesus. I'm not really into this like Pentecostal stuff. I believe in Jesus. And I just kind of gradually was like, okay, maybe this whole Christianity is like not really what I thought it was, and not really where I think I believe anymore. Kind of got into more new agey yoga stuff, and a lot of that was also very good for me. I joined a meditation group that I mentioned in that article that also was like a cult. That's another podcast. But I just kind of, surfing around, let's say, probably until, I don't know, I just like through aging, through having children, like that was a profound spiritual experience. COVID kind of left me really questioning everything I think I thought I believed in. So just kind of this journey of, okay, I thought it was this, nope, I thought it was this, no, like it's just like stuff started to feel more and more vapid to me. And like, I study language, so I'm always thinking like, okay, this feels like loaded language. This feels like buzzwords. What does this actually mean? Where is like the concrete kind of stuff? So I've just kind of always been on that journey. Where I land now, Dan, I don't know. My kids, so my husband was raised Hindu. We celebrate, all our traditional holidays here. We also celebrate traditional Hindu festivals with my children. I pray to my grandmothers every night. Like my dad passed away. I feel very spiritually connected to him. I pray to the dead people in my family. If you want my real answer, it's like, it's in my imagination, perhaps. It makes me feel good. I don't know. I do believe that I don't even like the word. I don't even like the word like atheist or agnostic. I think something else is going on, or I want to believe it. But a lot of my spirituality in the last 10 years has been around like reclaiming my body in a way that like I felt that, this like purity culture, Christianity stuff took away. Again, being pregnant, childbirth, having children, marriage, and just trying to lean into like, I don't really know what's out there, but I do know like, here I am, I'm alive. These are the people around me, leaning into community, leaning into, I mean, I hate the word politics, but when I say politics, like a lot of my inner values that I hold, that I'm really convicted by, you know, that's where I try to find spirituality, like trying to use whatever platform I have to speak to those convictions that I have. And that's sort of where I've landed. And like maybe next year I could have a totally different answer, but all I know is every night my children, we pray to the Hindu goddesses and we pray to grandmothers and like all the people in my family that have died.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Whatever you call that.
So you touched on a lot of stuff there. I'm really glad that you did. Talk about parenting a little bit. What was it like? Because you were already in the deconstruction process when you had kids, correct? So how do you kind of teach them kids' morality without church? Because those two were always very intertwined for me growing up.
It's funny, and I feel like, I mean, it's a great question, and I also feel like, yeah, it was same for me, right? Like, we didn't have a sense of morality outside of Christianity. I mean, a lot of people probably disagree with this. I'm pretty open and explicit with my kids. My oldest, he's very like curious about everything. So he knows all about like religion, politics, whatever, the world, countries, he knows it. And I'm just very honest of like, when I would say, how do I talk about religion? You know, even though we in our household don't we take them to church on Christmas Eve. That's about it. But they still, you know, come home with like, just had this past week, my kid came home from summer camp saying like some kid was talking about the devil. And I said, well, the devil's not real. And he knows I feel like this, right? Some people believe that. A lot of people believe that. I'm like, just like, you know, my in-laws, Bu and Amma in Nepal, and a lot of people there believe in Hinduism. Here in the US, a lot of people believe in Christianity, and in Christianity, they believe in Jesus and the devil or whatever. And sort of like, that's their opinion, that's their beliefs, and, you know. So I do talk about religion a lot. How do I teach morality? I don't know. I just try, like, I mean, I think we try to model it, you know, like we try to be good people. And I do a lot of like, not a lot, but I do a lot of like community sort of work and organizing. A lot of my teaching and research that I do is sort of about like righting these wrongs of injustice for marginalized populations. And my, you know, at least my oldest, my youngest, he just, you know, running around, he don't care, but
right, no.
I mean, they know kind of, I think, what I'm about, and yeah, like if you know, not to like go there, but in our community specifically, there's a lot of ICE presence, and like picking people up all the time, and my kids know that like that's, you know, we are trying to resist that. Like they know that that's coming out of a sense of, to me, I think morality of like trying to help people who are disenfranchised, I think is a lot of what I try to model to them. But most of the time it's like, hey, stop kicking the ball against the wall, or don't throw that at the TV. But I do like look forward to when they're older to like have a lot of these conversations. And I try to also like, and what do you think? You know, what do you believe? You know, this is what I believe. I try to make it just more open for them to explore. But, you know, they're also very young, so we have a long road ahead of us probably with that. But
right.
How about you? I mean, you've got some kiddos and...
Story. So Paul, who was on the podcast, he has that church, and then controversy came over that. But when I first met him, I thought he's a pastor, just like any other church. So he came up to me and he said, you and your wife have to write a book on parenting someday, because like, I don't know what you did, but you did the best job. Your kids are all wonderful. And what I really wanted to say was I never pushed church, any kind of religion, or politics on them. And now, that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And since then, I have told him, I was like, this is what I really wanted to say. He said, I think that's great. Like, he's just an awesome guy. But yeah, it's really interesting to see, like, how different 4 kids from the same parents can be. And like, we just really have tried to teach them love, like, and like, if you believe the Christian faith, that was Jesus's main commandment, like, love your neighbor. So that's something that we've just really tried to focus on. And through, like, Case, I think that gave us all a whole new outlook, perspective on life, just an appreciation. So I think it all kind of came together. But yeah, parenting is crazy. Yeah. So now Meredith is 22.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
It's like unreal. I remember when she was born, like that first apartment on what avenue?
Beale Avenue.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon.
This is something that I just told Liz recently because I heard, I think it was around a year ago. Do you remember being taught that Eve was created from Adam's rib? And we were just taught that men had one less rib. And I told Liz about this a few months back, and she was like, wait, what? Men don't have one less rib? It's like it's just a flat out lie. I don't understand how, I don't know.
A lot of those. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even, I mean, to go back to the parenting, like my husband kind of laughs at me because, like, I don't have an understanding of science. Like, what do you mean the world wasn't created by God in 7 days and it's been around for billions of years? What? Like, I never learned that. Mm-hmm. You know, just like those simple things that, and I hear that a lot for people who have left Christianity, of like these basic facts about the world, about biology, about whatever, and somehow so many of us just are walking around like, yeah, men have one less rib.
Right. Yeah, so that was kind of a crazy one. So when you started your kind of deconstruction process, or maybe when you first kind of decided to leave and it was people were finding out that you were kind of leaving, did you face any backlash from anyone?
That's a good question. Well, what mostly comes to mind is a lot of conversations with my mother, who had a lot of opinions about that. So I faced a lot of that backlash. I guess if I did, nothing that stands out to me that I remember. I think, again, it was just like, once I really stopped going, it was like I didn't hear from anybody. And then my friends and the people that I was then surrounding myself with, they weren't from that background. So yeah, I didn't really get a lot of that backlash. I get a lot of political backlash that I think is a little bit connected, but nothing that really stands out, at least from anyone in that community, other than like probably my own family.
This is something that we've been sitting here talking for almost an hour, and I really have no idea. Do you believe in God at this point?
What's that song? If God is real, it's a woman. I don't know. If I do, then I like to think of God as like a really warm grandmother who is very wise and been through the shit she's done with her estrogen, so she's not trying to like fawn and appease, and she's just like, I give no fuck. But like firm and wise and loving and compassionate. If I believe in God, I don't know if I do, but that's the God I would like to believe in.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's acceptable.
That's about all I got.
I have the fireflies. Hola, amigos.
What would today, Lauren, say to 2010, 2011 Lauren?
You're on the right path. Keep following your curiosity. Stop doubting yourself so much. Like, follow what you know. I think a lot of, especially inherent in, at least my experience in Christianity, is constantly self-questioning, like constantly self-doubting of like, and in a lot of ways, like, you know, there's one person, Amanda Montell, calls it like thought terminating cliches, where like anytime we would bring up a question, it would just be like, well, that's God's will, or that's just what God wants, or God's ways are better than us, you know, better than man's. So, you know, these sort of phrases that I'm sure we're all familiar with. And so it takes a long time, I think, to trust your own voice, especially if that voice inside of you has been in like that intense environment like I was for that a long time. But yeah, like follow your curiosity. Once I really like started seeing what cultures are out there, what beliefs are out there, what different kinds of people and experiences and life paths, I'm like, this is amazing. This is beautiful. Like, how did we just live in this super narrow, confined thing? Yeah, so just like, yeah, keep it going, Lauren, I guess is what I would say.
Now, when you did start to kind of question things, did you have pushback, or did people say you don't have enough faith, or what were some of the responses?
I think there was one person in our church who was an older man, and I at the time really respected him because I felt like he was really knowledgeable on the Bible itself, like the history, you know, sort of like from a theological perspective. I don't know if that's actually true or it just was in comparison to other people there in leadership. So I think at first it was a lot of like, I was getting less of the sort of fluffy phrases and more like what felt like a more biblical, I guess, perspective. And at the time I appreciated that and I respected that because I was still like questioning, but I was like, I wasn't questioning Christianity. I was just questioning some of these aspects of it, especially like the Pentecostal stuff. But I see that now as one, you know, I don't know what else I would have gotten if I was going to a person like that. Like I didn't go someone outside of the church, right, for those kinds of things. And I think, again, like there's just a lot of that moving target of like a lot of the services where like you're just, yeah, it's always like there's something wrong with you. Like there's something wrong with you if you're questioning. So I think that guy, he was a little bit more open to these questions, but a lot of people, just like general experience overall, I think is like, well, there's something wrong with you if you don't believe it or you don't get it, or maybe it's a demon is attacking you and that's why you're having those thoughts. Yeah, but it's all, you know, and again, that's like a common saying also of like, well, you just don't have enough faith. So again, like the problem is you, going back to you're the problem.
And lean not on your own understanding.
There you go.
That college education, that corrupted you.
Yeah, I'm like a walking, yeah, it's like, and again, I even had many conversations, not so much at the church, but more at the school of like, why would you go to a secular college? Why wouldn't you go to a Bible college? Put yourself into debt. Who cares? It's God's will. Like that was a whole thing of like, what college was I going to go to? It was a whole thing talking about with men in position, in those places.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's currently in the church who has maybe at the early stages of where you started to question? What would you say to someone like that?
Oh, just get out. So let me caveat. So I teach English now. A lot of what, not all, but a lot of what I teach is about cult and cultish group or high demand group. So, I'm not gonna like hide of where I'm coming from, of like how I think about things now. I see a lot of red flags. There's so many patterns. I'm not saying like specifically at that church, just like general Christianity and experiences that I've been exposed to. Can be culty or high demand. But I know when you're in it, it's not just like, okay, get out and run. When you're in it, I think I would say the same thing of what I was telling myself of like, just keep following that curiosity. If you can, try to have some kind of connection to someone outside of that environment that you trust or you feel is safe. Because I think it's those connections that help you. That's what happened to me. It's those connections outside of it that help you see like, okay, well, we thought that was normal. Holy shit. Like what? And be gentle with yourself. And yeah, just like, again, follow that curiosity. The questions are coming up for a reason. And again, not really from my experience, but just like researching cults in general, those questions are coming up for a reason. And cult or high demand group or even high demand ideologies are very good at shutting those questions down, and trying to somehow maintain a sense of yourself and your own identity outside of the group. I think is really a big difference between what makes belief just like these are their beliefs, and they're harmless, versus like these are its beliefs and it's really harmful both for themselves and for others.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I've been starting to have these conversations and I'm just getting hit with targeted social media things, but it just seems like there are so many more people deconstructing now. Like before, it was somebody would quietly leave the church and they just basically suffer and by themselves. And now it's almost like a movement.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that a lot. I think, like I said, like when I was, 20 years ago, I guess I was deconstructing. I didn't know that was a word until, I don't know, maybe 5 or something years ago. And I think, going back to why I wrote that, I think it was because for a long time, I did just like have this, I think now I look back and see anger and resentment and like just this really bad taste in my mouth anytime I heard any of these like spiritual-y phrases stuff. And there is a lot of, media coming out. Like, I don't know if you saw the Shiny Happy People documentary series that came out.
What's
so
that
again,
on?
I teach, that's on Amazon Prime. So the first season was about, do you remember the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first season is kind of following like more of
They're a
those
wreck
fundamental. Oh yeah, it's a mess. It's horrible. But following those kind of more fundamental, the homeschooling, much more traditional than like an Assemblies of God kind of thing. That's the first season. The second season, though, I used to watch it, and then maybe let's talk again.
Okay,
the second season was about these. God, what was it called? Now it's escaping me, but it was Ignite the Fire. It was these like conferences that were very mega churchy, very like more of the Pentecostal side. I forget what exactly the program was, but it's sort of all about that. And even just watching that second season, it also helped me unpack more memories that I had and just reflect back to a lot of those beliefs we had in a very different way. Again, I mentioned Tia Levings, her memoir. She was like tried and true trad wife before that was a thing on social media, and it like talks about her experience growing up in fundamental, being married in like fundamental evangelicalism. So anyway, I think there is a lot more coming out about all kinds of different high demand groups and all kinds of different religions. But yeah, we're seeing a lot more of like coming out from Christianity. But it's interesting because again, also like I go to the gym and I see even some of my students, these 18, 20-year-olds wearing Bible verses on their t-shirts. Like, I just feel like we weren't really seeing that as common like 10 years ago. So it's interesting. I think we're seeing some pull between both of those.
Oh, I wonder if you could make the correlation that it's since politics and Christianity are really kind of meshing at this point, if it's kind of like a cool thing and more acceptable to wear shirts like that.
It is. I think it's really trendy. I think there's a lot of young girls who think, I don't want to be the girl boss. I don't want to be like second wave feminist mom who does it all CEO. I want to be the soft life, and I want to lean into like the sort of more traditional gender roles. We see like Secret Wives of Mormon Lives, Mormons, talking about that, or portraying that they are that. And I think culture is always just going to kind of swing back and forth. Like my husband and I talk a lot about like our generation. It was a lot more like secularism of like what you believe is what you believe. Like that was, I think, was much more mainstream, not in my background, but, generally speaking. And now we're just kind of swinging more towards the other way. Again, mostly I think because of where we are politically, but it, I just want to give like warning. It comes with a cost. And again, there's a lot of women in their 50s who are like, hey, been there, done that, and went through hell, because they were doing that and dependent on their husband who ended up being abusive. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm sure it will probably start swinging back some other way. But and also one thing I think about, I think COVID left a lot of us just rattled in ways that like I don't think we've really processed at all. Like, wait, what exactly happened? And we were just cut off from everybody or whatever. And I think there's so many different things that have occurred that cause a lot of people to question and feel unsettling. And it's usually during those times of like political crisis or whatever, that cultural crises, that like people do tend to turn towards what they feel is more secure, which is like, just tell me what to believe and tell me what to do. That's a lot easier than like trying to sort it out and figure it out and go through the highs and the lows. It is in some ways a lot easier. Just say, okay, tell me what to do, and tell me what to believe, tell me what to say and think. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too.
So back to like t-shirts and clothes. This gave Liz a lot of anxiety. Can you see my shirt?
I see love the believer, hate the belief. So, I'm like cringing at the believer. That explains where I'm at.
I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Godspeed, John Glenn.
I mean, when Trump was reelected the second time, I was like very, very triggered in a way that I did not anticipate, specifically because of like everything we just talked about. Like the only word I can think of was triggered. Of like it was like everything that I've tried to kind of work so hard to put behind me felt like, oh, now this is like the waters that we're all swimming in. Like now it's not just something compartmentalized over there where like I can go once a week or not. Now it's just like everywhere, and the beliefs around it. And I think I even tried to block out he was even running the second time. But anyway, I mean, the first time, I was still some Facebook friends with some people from that church. And when I realized that they literally think and this is like, I'm going off of comments that I saw, and people have actually said this, like, it doesn't really matter what he does because they literally think God put him in power. And once I kind of realized that's where they're coming from, I'm like, there's no conversation to be had. Like, whether gas prices are up or not, if God put him in power, there's no entryway into like a real conversation about that. So then I just kind of decided, like, yeah, I guess we have to be done trying to have those conversations. Not saying everyone who voted for him believes that, but I'm just saying the people from my world, that's what they believe.
Well, you could make the argument that God put Hitler in power. Not saying Hitler and Trump, but maybe
Yeah,
I
we
am.
can say that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll say it. You don't have to say it. I'll say it.
All right. Is there anything that you're still unlearning?
I think for a long time, and I'll just say again, because I grew up in, like, it wasn't just like going to church once a week. I'm talking like I was very, very deeply in this belief system and in this culture and in this world for the 20 years of my life. So it's always hard for me to separate, like, was that childhood or was that, all of it. But anyway, a lot of the purity culture stuff, I think I still am unlearned. Like, I maybe just now, I'm 36, kind of like, okay. Or I don't have those same kind of immediate reactions to things around that. Something else I was going to say that I forgot. Trying to be, this is where I say, like, was it just me? Is that like I think, it's all a little bit a combination of it, but like always trying to be like the good girl that's like pleasing everybody and, who had all the answers. I mean, I was excellent at church. I knew all the answers. I was excellent in classes. Like, I was on it. I was pretty diehard and like trying to move from like that, like people pleasing kind of fawning, that I think, at least for women and girls in the church, I think is really a part of a lot, or like very common experience, I guess. So yeah, still kind of unlearning a lot of that. And it's interesting, when we throw around this word God, there's a reason that I was really specific of like God's a woman and it's a grandma, like, because a lot of, I think for a very long time, I still had, even though I didn't believe it, and I think it's a cultural thing as well, of like this idea that God was still a male. He was still very judgmental. He loved us, but like, watch it. And it was hard to, even though I can't really articulate, like I didn't believe that, but it was still like my immediate sort of conceptualization of a God, even in conversations outside of Christianity. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It was all over the place, but I pulled it all together in here. So it was good.
Okay.
I remembered what I was talking about with the drug thing earlier.
Yeah.
So you said about how you felt like it was always praying for drug addicts. But then at the same time, we also compared the feeling that you get in church to almost a high. So you could probably, I don't know, something's there. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I saw a lot of people, and again, like I want to be really cautious of like, I don't have this experience, so I want to be like, I want to be very mindful of like people have real struggled with addictions and things, and I want to be very like careful. But I do remember seeing a lot of people who, let's say, came out of one drug addiction, and it seems like were given a new sense of identity through the church because it was so involved. And maybe that helped them, and that's great. For me, on an outside perspective, it seemed like, and if we're talking addictions, maybe that's a better addiction than like some substance that could just kill you. But I do think there's a correlation there. I'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm. All right, I like that.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
I still can't believe that we're sitting here having this conversation. Could you imagine that, like, back in when we first met, like 2001, saying, hey, 25 years from now, you guys are going to be sitting down talking about how this was all kind of bullshit.
No, but I'm so glad that we are here doing this.
Yes. I feel like we covered so many things, and I hope it was somewhat coherent. I have no idea. I'll go back and edit, and I'll be like, what is this? Was there anything that I didn't ask, or any topics that you kind of wanted to touch on?
Not necessarily. I think, just to say, like, for where I am now, I know it maybe I made it sound like a little bit dismal and how I'm like perceiving spirituality, but like I find I have a lot of fulfillment, and I'm, to go back to like, what would I tell someone if they might be in that position? Like, I have a lot of fulfillment. I find a lot of meaning in whatever I'm finding in now, like my research that I do, my teaching that I do, this, sort of community work that I do, like. And, there was always this thing of like, growing up, like, again, how could you be a good person without Jesus or religion? And I think it's because I've met so many great people who are really doing what I think, and some of them are Christian, right? A couple of them, but like helping out their communities, like feeding people, like giving them resources or supporting them. Like, to me, that's like, I'm really passionate about that. I really care about it a lot. And I do find a lot of in that is completely separate than anything I believe about how we got here as human beings or what's here after we're gone. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's my next question. Where do we go when we die? What's your thought on that?
I think we lay in the lap of our grandmothers, and we see all of the souls that we've lost here on earth, and some that from history that maybe we would want to meet. And I don't know where that puts Hitler, or I'm not sure about that, but that makes me feel good to believe in it. Again, whether that's my imagination, whether I have a different answer in a year, perhaps. But again, I am sort of in this grief process of losing my dad in September, and what brings me comfort is thinking of him with his mother, with his parents, and hoping that they're all on the other side, looking at us and caring for us and sending messages or whatever. So whether that's all made up, I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm at.
You're free to believe it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it. Yep.
Lauren, 1990. It was awesome. It was
unreal.
Great. And
it was wonderful.
So Liz is in DC this weekend for her birthday, but when she gets back, I definitely want to do a FaceTime just so she can talk with you too. Yeah. I
really would love to. Like, I had, again, when I was thinking about, when you reached out, and so just on my mind of thinking of you and Liz, I'm like, again, you guys were a part of so many of like my memories back then, and they were really good memories. And it's like, yeah, and then here we are 20 years later, we just, it sucks to lose touch, but it's nice to, have those connections again. But yeah, please send Liz all my love. I would love to chat with her anytime.
Yes. Awesome. All right.
Awesome.
And my only closing remark is religion is like a penis. It's cool to have one, but don't go shoving it down people's throats.
Love that.
All right.
Love that.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, thank you very much.